This time on Watchers of Tomorrow, don't drink the whole thing twice.
Hello everyone, welcome to Watchers of Tomorrow, the sci-fi review and critique show that gets sold to both sides. My name is Gepwin. I'm joined as always by my friend and co-host Dr. Izix.
Hi.
And we are at the confusingly named and very unmemorable episode called Too Short a Season.
Unless you're into weird makeup choices.
Yeah, there's not good makeup choices. This is also, I don't know, they do this de-aging plot in one way or another at least 3 times.
Oh.
I think, and this is probably the least memorable of them.
Though it is a interesting adventure to watch, I guess. Even if it's not memorable.
There's some interesting stuff in it a bit, but yeah, I'd forgotten which one this was. I kept expecting a different character to show up until I was a good way through the episode, and it was like, oh wait, yeah, it's this one, not the other one.
Yeah. Well, we'll have opportunities to talk about those other adventures later there, but for this one at least, we get, an episode where most of the action is kind of taken over by the guest stars.
Yeah,
like
a lot of it.
Yeah, it's kind of the first time in Star Trek TNG here that kind of happens. And sometimes it's a bit better than others overall. I think probably the best example of that was when Cole Meany was still sort of a secondary character, and he carried an entire episode, and they're like, maybe he'd be good as a main character role.
Mm-hmm.
But that's a ways off.
So this is we have a sort of returning writer, because I think they collaborated a little bit on a previous episode, but not much. This is written by Michael Michelin, who's the ex-husband of Catherine Powers, who wrote Code of Honor. And I think there may have been some collaboration on that script. I was a little unclear. He also wrote for an ABC movie called The Deadly Are Missing, which starred Leonard Nimoy.
Huh. He also wrote for something called Con!
Mm-hmm. And TV shows like The Quest, Kung Fu, Fantastic Voyage, that sort of thing.
And Friday the 13th, the series.
Yeah, there's a reason no one remembers that. And then also the teleplay was co-written by DC Fontana, who shows up a lot. We know her.
She's fantastic, though, probably getting a bit fed up with the writer's room here at this point in Star Trek here.
Yeah, everyone was at this part of the first season. Oh, guest stars. Even though this is a very guest star focused episode, it's not a very guest star heavy episode, which is nice for me.
Hooray!
So Clayton Rohner plays Admiral Jameson. He starred in some 85 stuff, he was in an 85 movie called Just One of the Guys, and was on a lot of TV shows like Angel, X-Files, TJ Hooker. He's one of those people that's been around in things.
Yes, Earth Force, Murder One, and Good versus Evil.
There's also Marissa Hunt. She plays the Admiral's wife, Anne Jameson. She actually began acting in 1935, was blacklisted in the 50s, which kind of put a little rest in her career, and then she came back in 2006 when she started doing more stuff after having been blacklisted for a while. She had little bits and pieces like this, but it was a lot of stuff going on there.
Yeah, this was the last role she had before the sort of big break there.
Mm-hmm.
So, last, couple things is the Empire State Building Murders TV movie. But before then, she was on Murder, She Wrote, Police Story, Harry O, Ironsides, and a whole bunch of other things going way back.
And as of this recording, she is currently the oldest living Star Trek actor at age 104.
Wowzers. Yeah, in a few more centuries, she'll be as old as her husband looked like in this episode.
Yeah. Though that's not fair. In the episode, he's supposed to have a degenerative disease or some such.
True.
Then finally, we have Michael Pataki playing Karnas. He showed up before. He played Korax in Trouble with Tribbles. He was also on a lot of guest starring roles on stuff like X-Files, Rawhide, Voyage to the Bottom of the Sea.
Mighty Mouse, The New Adventures.
Oh, I love Mighty Mouse. I don't know if I ever saw The New Adventures.
I don't think I have. It's also in the Ren and Stimpy show. It's various characters, often a cow.
Sure. So, this episode's light on a lot of stuff, so we may as well jump in.
All right, let's get light.
I don't know. Usually we have more. Well, usually we have more to like gripe about before we start on the story.
This is like just kind of a thing that happens as far as Star Trek goes.
So the Enterprise is en route to confer with an Admiral Jameson because he's been requested to personally negotiate a terrorist hostage situation on Mordan 4, where terrorists have captured a Federation ambassador, which is why the Federation is getting involved.
Now, this is sort of the first time this sort of a hostage situation pops up, but there's going to be various ones throughout the series as we go forward.
So the Admiral and his wife beam aboard. The Admiral is in a Professor X-style wheelchair, like full body, covers your entire lower section kind of style wheelchair.
Yeah. It's like when I was watching Picard meet the ambassador, it's like, maybe I should get me one of those.
Hortense. He doesn't even get that until the new Doctor Strange movie.
Yeah.
Light spoilers for the new Doctor Strange movie, I guess. Yeah.
I should probably get around to seeing, but I've seen the GIFs where he does the grinding on the rail around the room.
So the Admiral makes a point of very much informing the captain that while the captain's in charge of the ship, he is in complete control of the mission and the away team and everything else, just not the ship.
All right. I guess then if Picard wanted to just fly the ship off somewhere else, then he could. Neat.
So later on, they get to the bridge where they are contacted by Karnas, the leader of Mordan. The terrorists have demanded that they will only discuss things with the Admiral. So that's why he's coming. Any excuses will result in the death of the hostages, including the ambassador. The Admiral thinks the terrorists only want to negotiate with him and not Karnas because they might want weapons and things that the planetary government won't negotiate on, but they think the Federation might.
Probably some previous experience here. Also, Karnas seems a bit shifty, but the Admiral's explanation kind of makes sense, I guess.
Yeah, the whole thing seems very shifty. Very, very shifty.
Mm-hmm.
It's one of those everyone knows something weird is happening episodes, but no one's allowed to talk about it because chain of command stuff.
Picard's probably thinking, I need to encourage my crew to be open about their concerns more often.
So the Admiral returns to his quarters where his wife's putting away their things, marveling at these new ships because the quarters are huge and things on a Galaxy class ship. Yeah, these things are like bigger than most hotel rooms.
Yes. I'd love to live on a ship like that.
The Admiral's having weird pains. He seems very unconcerned about them getting more weird health stuff. Yeah, well, also, I do think I forgot to mention, the Admiral is supposed to be 85. He looks about 110.
Or higher.
Yeah. He is later revealed to have a degenerative, genetic disease. But he looks older than Dr. McCoy looked in the first episode.
Yes. And McCoy is 100 bazillion years old at this point.
Yeah, he's supposed to be about 30 years younger than McCoy was in the first episode.
So, this is definitely there's something wrong with this guy. And
also, the old age makeup does not hold up at all.
Not really. It kind of looks like his face is just kind of chunky.
So, Picard and Dr. Crusher are talking about being concerned and confused about the Admiral because he lied about his medical records. Because he gave her test results that were 2 months old instead of the 2 days old like he said they were. Mm-hmm. So he might be hiding something, but who knows what, because it's weird to lie about your medical records like that.
Yeah. There is, I think this is the moment where Picard sort of has an interesting exchange with Crusher there, where it almost seems like he's dismissing what she's saying about her concerns, but she's like, no, I actually do care about your what you're saying here. It's just, I want you to make sure that you know that I'm listening, so.
Mm-hmm.
Kind of good character moment.
So he asks her to keep an eye on things, which is a really good idea because later Picard offers Jameson the con, just for old time's sake, fly the ship. You've been working a desk for a while. He gets up out of his wheelchair and walks across the bridge.
And everyone's like, this guy's gonna like fall over and break all his bones, isn't he? But he makes it, so.
Yeah, you're pretty spry for someone who's wheelchair bound there.
Yeah.
Now, this is something they make a big deal about in the show. A lot of people who need wheelchairs don't need them full time and can walk short distances and mostly need them to rest in. Like, it's not a thing that anyone in a wheelchair can't walk at all. They make a big deal about it in the show, so
yeah,
it's an important plot point.
Yeah, I've actual some personal experience there. My mom, near the later years of her life, couldn't go long distances. So if we needed to be out and about, she'd need to get a chair along with to make sure that she could actually get places.
So Jameson has claimed that he can walk now because of a new therapy that he began before they left. Crusher's baffled because there's no cure or treatment or anything for his condition.
Yes.
There's never been anyone who's ever improved this situation.
Yeah, this might be a good excuse to call up this guy's doctor and say, hey, so you apparently come up with a miracle cure, but, we don't...
Why haven't I heard about this?
Yeah. But we don't follow up on that particular line of questioning.
Mm-hmm. So even back in the Admiral's quarters, his wife is very surprised by his recovery and how he looks notably younger, which a lot of people aren't, commenting on.
Yeah.
Yet, he also gets weird pains and falls over, which prompts her to call sickbay, because of course...
It's like you keep having these horrible pain things, and you're looking weird. Maybe, getting a medical checkup would be a good idea at this point. And also, you're kind of hunched over, so you're not in a good position to complain against.
You're kind of dying over there.
So you're not going to let you refuse it this time.
So Crusher's found a weird substance in his blood. She doesn't recognize it. Also, he doesn't have his disease anymore.
Huh.
Which is weird.
Yeah, that's a little weird.
Until she runs more tests, she has no idea what's going on. Picard decides to confront Jameson about this, but he has nothing to hide now, because they found him out. So he looks even younger than he did last time we saw him.
Mm-hmm.
And he explains that when he found out he had a degenerative disease, he went to the planet in the Cerberus system, where they have some sort of thing that rejuvenates the body. He was able to get it because he did them like a favor later. They usually don't give it to outsiders. I feel like this is something that we hit in original series too. I forgot to look up whether it was the same planet or not.
Well, are you talking about the Garth of Izar?
Yeah.
I don't remember what planet he got his thing from, but if it was Izar, yeah, it's a different planet. But yeah,
I should look that up.
Yes. Quick to the internet.
There you are, Garth. Blah, 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 blah. Devolved into madness. Asylum. Yeah, where's his thing? Where did he get it? Okay, on Antos 4.
Antos, so that's a different place.
The gentle beings of Antos 4, which, let's go to Antos and just make sure it's not in the Cerberus system for some reason. An energy controlling species known as the giant dry worms.
Cool.
Interesting.
Well, let's have an episode about those guys.
Apparently there's some books. So yes, it is a completely other, unrelated, rejuvenating treatment by completely other aliens that have nothing to do with the ones who did it in the original series episode.
Yeah, though Garth particular was more of my body's been torn asunder. This guy is just really old and suffering from diseases.
Yeah. Though I do think it's interesting because now, if they did this in Strange New Worlds, oh my god, there would be like a whole half-hour long wink at the audience, look, we remembered a thing bit. In this, they did exactly the same thing, but didn't even bother to check what the name of the old planet was, because who cares?
Well, there's just a bunch of planets like this where you can get miracle cures for whatever. Just, tracking them down is tricky.
So Jameson was taking the treatment as directed for a bit, but it works fairly slowly. When the hostage negotiation started, he decided that he needed to be young and virile and able to do the process, so he took not only his own dose, but the one he'd gotten for his wife, too.
So that seems like a bad idea.
Yeah.
Yeah. Overdosing on one is bad enough. On two, yeah, that just. What are you thinking, guy? Come on.
Yeah, it's probably not good. It seems to be working, though. It's putting his body under enormous strain, but he is de-aging rather rapidly.
Mm-hmm. And, even his hair color is changing, though hair doesn't really work like that.
Well, you don't know how this thing works.
Or maybe he's dyeing his hair. There we go.
Anne is pretty understandably upset because he didn't ask if she wanted any of this, and he put his life at risk without talking to her about it. Anything. It's not a good look for a marriage here, dude.
Yeah, it's like, this is something that's going to affect both of them, so you might want to, consult your wife.
So Jameson leaves and decides to just continue doing his all-important mission here. He contacts Karnas again to get information that he may be holding back.
Yes.
He's not giving much about the terrorists, and he's very evasive. So Jameson now believes that there are no terrorists.
Also, Jameson is hiding out in the shadows a lot when he's on the con.
Yeah, it's just he's sitting back in the shadows like, no, it's just dark in here. Never mind.
Yes, it could be anyone playing me in this particular seat here. But anyway, so out the hostages.
So Karnas apparently may be keeping the hostages himself as some sort of ploy to get Jameson to pay for them, working both sides possibly. No one knows yet, but Karnas is lying about something.
Yes.
So Jameson orders the ship at double speed to arrive ahead of schedule and throw Karnas off his game. And he also now wants to lead an armed rescue mission instead of a negotiation.
So mission has changed. Got it. More phasers.
He will raid the tunnels under the city where he believes that Karnas is going to hide hostages, because that's where he hid hostages before during the war thing that he negotiated earlier.
You'd think that knowing his plan like this would be something that the Karnas would be aware of, but Jameis is just nah, he's not creative. He just does the same thing over and over again as long as it works.
Meanwhile, Anne is getting counseled by Dr. Crusher and Troy. She's upset that Jameson now has his life to live over again, because she wanted to enjoy their old age together and retire, but now he's going to be a young kid, and where does that leave her? And Dr. Crusher goes, well, I have some good news and bad news.
Yes, the good news is you don't have to worry about that. Guess the bad news is?
Yeah, the bad news is he's going to die.
Well, maybe it's time to, say goodbye to your husband, while he's still, not busy being shot in a tunnel somewhere.
Yeah. So Picard tries to talk Jameson out of this whole armed raid thing, really, because he was able to negotiate before. But he says, in fact, the official story is a lie. He didn't actually negotiate and save the hostages 40 years ago. He gave Karnas all of the weapons that he wanted.
Oh,
to
dang.
get the hostages back.
He's pulling
But, to be fair, he gave the same weapons to the enemies.
Oh, wait. I'm suddenly reminded of a private little war. Yes.
So he was hoping that this would turn into a stalemate, because both sides would have previously unimaginable firepower. But instead, it just led to a 40-year civil war.
Whoops.
So now Karnas wants revenge, and so this time Jameson's going to take the hostages by force like he should have done the first time, at least in his estimation. So they prepare to beam down. Picard insists on going with them to keep an eye on his people, I guess. When they arrive, Jameson doesn't know where they are. His memory of the tunnels is contradicting Data's maps.
Yes. It's almost like, decades of time has passed and they've remodeled it maybe a few times.
Yeah, and maybe you can't trust your memories from 40 years ago.
Yes, even if your body's young again, that doesn't mean your memory is too.
The Admiral insists that he's correct and presses forward. The tunnel's blocked off, though.
Yeah.
Jameson orders them to cut through it. Geordi sees an infrared beam. It's probably alarm. It's just before they're attacked by Karnas's troops.
Yes, though it kind of maybe implies that the beam's going across the tunnel like a tripwire, but then it doesn't really matter anyway since the troops suddenly show up. Also, they kind of remind me of some of the goons from Blake 7 as far as their weapons choices are concerned.
Yeah, though all the non-Federation weapons and troops and whatever in this are weird because they try to skirt that. They're not in the Federation, so they don't have the standard uniform. But we don't know how to dress anyone that's not in a standard uniform.
Yeah. They're blue fatigue, sort of, kind of. Yeah.
Yeah.
For hiding in tunnels, yeah.
So they get attacked. Jameson collapses in the middle of the firefight, and they have to beam everyone back to the ship.
And everyone's kind of together in a huddle, and it's, they're just cuddling.
So Karnas contacts them because he's kind of upset about how, they tried to break in and steal the hostages.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
So he gives them 10 minutes to beam down Jameson, or he's going to kill everyone.
Picard, you could say that Jameson was responsible for that ill-fated attempt and was horribly injured in the process. So, he might be dying here. So could you give us a little more time?
You could say something about it at all. Yeah. So even though Jameson's dying, he wants to go anyway because he's going to die one way or another. So he may as well trade his life for the hostages.
Yeah, that's fair.
So Picard, Crusher, and Jameson beam down. But Karnas doesn't even recognize him because he's de-aged.
Yeah, all the way. He's not wearing any makeup, except maybe some blush, but
Yeah, now he looks like he's in his 30s. And Karnas refuses to believe that this fountain of youth stuff that they're spouting. He wants to show Jameson the broken world he created. But as Picard says, Karnas demanded weapons, fought for years, started a civil war, continued a civil war, and is now like, this is all Jameson's fault.
Yeah, there's a lot of responsibility on your own head there for, not trying to figure out a way to settle things without massive amounts of violence.
Yeah. But,
I
it's
guess
your fault. You gave me weapons.
But I guess you just couldn't stop until all your enemies are dead. And so you have no responsibility forever because, you had that compulsion, I guess. Ugh.
Now, Karna still has trouble believing that this young man is the old admiral that he wanted revenge on. But they show him the whole transformation in a lot of still pictures. The future's weird.
Yep. Let me show you a slideshow here. It's fine.
Karnas can't have his revenge anymore because Jameson's dying anyway. He tells Karnas the details of the meeting, that only 2 of them attended, and shows him a scar from their blood bond that conveniently didn't go away.
No, that's useful.
Yeah. Karnas prepares to kill him, but decides it's better to just watch him die slowly and painfully.
Yeah, you could give him a quick death and feel good about, finally getting down the guy that you've been hating for poorly thought out reasons for ages. Or you could just watch him suffer until, he dies a few seconds later.
So they beam down Jameson's wife. He dies in her arms. Karnas lets the hostages go, and everyone leaves.
Yep, and Picard, I'd recommend maybe, evacuating these hostages and just not having an ambassadorial sort of effort on this planet until this guy's not in power anymore. Because it seems like he's maybe not trustworthy.
Yeah, he's doing some weird stuff, and let's not give them a chance to take more Federation hostages, maybe.
Yeah, but that's not addressed at all. We don't really know what happened to the hostages other than they're released.
I think it's interesting. There's this episode, one we're going to get to a bit later. A lot of stuff in the first season really has been doing this very 80s thing that we aren't really commenting on that much anymore, which is, here's a lot of really bad things that happened when we, the United States, shipped a bunch of weapons to people.
Yep.
Which, interestingly, is something that we still do. Mm-hmm. We have done for years, ever since the Cold War. We never stopped. We just don't talk about it very much anymore.
Yeah, in fact, I was trying to do a little bit of a wiki search for some of these things, and in terms of specifically arms sales and transfers, some things are well documented, others much less so, and that's a little frustrating. Mm-hmm. Generally on the newer stuff too. But
like the Iran-Contra thing would have been pretty recent news at this point, because this episode came out in 1988.
Yes.
And the Iran-Contra thing was between 85 and 87.
Well, that's when people really knew about it, but it actually started earlier than that.
But, when it would have been in public knowledge and, the writers would have been able to take inspiration from it, is this. When Reagan was secretly selling weapons to people that he shouldn't have been.
Yeah, so the little bit of background. So the country of Nicaragua in Central America was, having a sort of an internal dispute between, left-wing and right-wing sort of groups. And Reagan being, generally communists are bad, I was like, I'm going to fund and give arms to the Contras, the right-wing rebel group in Nicaragua. And that's going to be A-okay because they're going to fight for us. Oh, they're committing atrocities? Whoops. So Congress is like, maybe we shouldn't be funding these kind of guys that are just going about and just murdering everyone because, that's, one, not helpful for anyone. And, yeah, this is just awful. So we're going to put, into law that you can't do that. So Reagan's like, well, maybe if we have an intermediary, hey, Iran, we're, kind of like hostile to each other. So, we'll give you some weapons, and the money from that will be sort of laundered in order to buy weapons for the Contras still, and everything will be fine, right?
Yeah, it turned out perfectly, and we didn't have any reason to think about it again.
But then, information about this did start coming out, and so there was a bit of an inquiry, and that's how Oliver North got, infamous, I suppose. It's sort of like, okay, so maybe some people are going to go to jail. And Reagan's like, I didn't know anything for sure. And so there's what they call a bit of a controversy there, a scandal even. And so there was, some investigations going in, and there were people that were going to be going to jail. And then, the presidential election happened, and George H.W. Bush became president. And suddenly a bunch of people got pardoned. That's weird. Huh.
Yeah. Interesting how that works.
Yes, it's like, I'm not Reagan, so, there's no conflict of interest here. So, yeah. So, everything is forgiven and forgotten now. So let's move on, America. But,
there's for some reason never a conflict of interest when former vice president pardons the president that they were working under.
Yeah.
This happens several times.
Yeah, or their various underlings and, associates there. Maybe, since it's not a problem, maybe we should still encode some rules into that anyway. That would make sense, even though it's clearly not a problem that keeps on happening.
Yeah. We don't have a weird loophole in our pardon system that people keep openly talking about exploiting to get away with things.
Yeah. Even in recent times, someone associated with the president, maybe spending some time in jail suddenly gets, pardoned. It's not a tit for tat sort of, you protected me, I'm going to protect you sort of thing. Not at all. And I really, really hope my sarcasm is getting annoying at this point, because this sort of pattern is annoying, and it's something we should actually, fix.
Well, I do think it is fairly interesting to look at how this episode in the late 80s handles this question, as opposed to how, like you mentioned, Private Little War handled it back in the 60s.
Mm-hmm.
Because people can go back and look that up if you want to, but Private Little War involved the Klingons and the Federation both having to arm various factions on a neutral planet to perform a proxy war.
Indeed.
And the takeaway from that episode was, it's sad that we need to do this, but it's necessary to maintain the balance, because otherwise the Klingons would just take over and that would be bad.
But I guess in the this new era of the Federation, folks are like, maybe we don't have to worry about the Klingons really. Maybe just arming both sides is just a bad idea on its own.
Well, what's interesting here is they do say that the Admiral did something wrong.
Mm-hmm.
He did, well, it's wrong that you gave them weapons. That was bad. And you shouldn't have done that. It's
Yes.
against Federation, whatever. You definitely should not have given them weapons. But none of the harm that happened is really our fault, though.
No blame for us, really.
Which is still working from a weird model of how we think about American like empire and power in the 80s.
Mm-hmm.
Because America has a very long history, especially in South America, with like the Nicaragua thing.
Yep.
Like, we have a long history of destabilizing functioning democracies that are interfering with capitalist interests.
Oh no, they're gonna privatize the hat making industry. Let's take our bananas and fund some contras here.
Yeah, mostly fruit. It's mostly for the fruit industry.
Hence the term Banana Republic.
Yeah. I'm forgetting now. Was it Guatemala? Forgive me. I'm forgetting the country, but there was definitely a time like a fully democratic, somewhat socialist-leaning government got elected, decided to take all of the land that the fruit industry was leaving barren to drive up fruit prices, and seize it and give it to people who would actually use it to farm food for themselves.
Yeah. But this is bad here because
my favorite part, my absolute favorite part, is they did pay the fruit industry for this. They did pay them for the land, but they paid them what they claimed the land was worth when they paid taxes on it.
So they didn't like that price then.
Yeah, they didn't like that. And then they came crying to the American government, which destabilized the functioning democracy, forced the duly elected president out, and funded a coup.
Help us. They paid for what we valued our land as. Why do we care? Bananas! Let's go.
Yeah. And so that in this, like, this is not the exact situation, but you can draw parallels because of the whole weapons dealing plot. In this episode, they are essentially removing America's like interfering impulses in here. You're saying these guys demanded weapons. We didn't come in to a rebel group, go, hey, you want some weapons as long as you do what we want? We didn't come in and do anything. They demanded weapons. This guy gave it to them, but then they're the ones who chose to use them. So really, it's the onus is on them, the people who are choosing to do violence.
So I'm not going to say that there wasn't some culpability for Carnass here, but it's a lot easier not to shoot somebody if you don't actually have a gun.
Yeah, I mean, they obviously needed these weapons for something, otherwise they wouldn't have asked for them. And like, you could make an argument that they would have had exactly the same civil war, since both sides got the same weapons and they had a 40-year-long civil war. So obviously having the advanced weaponry didn't do anything.
The advanced weaponry may have been better at killing, but apparently it didn't kill them enough or fast enough or something, I guess. Shrug.
But it's kind of perpetuating this idea that, the U.S. proxy in this case, our U.S. proxy, was faced with this impossible decision, and it's so sad that the evil terrorists put them in this position.
Or, maybe find a different solution.
Yeah, you could have done that too. You could have actually negotiated anything,
and especially given that the previous negotiators in the episode are mentioned as being assassinated. It's like, if we keep going into this situation, we're going to die. So if we're going to negotiate, we need to negotiate a little bit more on our terms. Otherwise, there's no point, and you're just going to kill the hostages anyway. So and then maybe you'll have any sort of leverage. Also, why do we keep sending Federation people to this planet anyway? Seems like a bad idea.
Yeah, that seems like a bad idea. Now, I will admit, a lot of that is bringing in outside of the show influences, but we're looking at the political climate of the time period when the episode came out.
Mm-hmm.
This is not stuff that was explicitly in the text of the show,
Yes.
but it is excusing stuff that America was embroiled in controversy for. It's lightly criticizing America for doing something bad, but not going into the full extent of what they're doing.
Yeah. So I guess the Contras would still be murdering people, but we would not be arming them specifically, I guess.
Yeah, but they might not be because, they are a rebel group that we funded to try to fight a proxy war with what we saw as communist people. But given it was Reagan, he was probably just funding full-on right-wing dictators.
Yeah, it's Reagan. That's what he does.
As the Boondocks is fond of saying, Ronald Reagan is the devil.
I can get behind that characterization. He's someone who was much loved in the, I guess, the mythology of America, in the 80s and a few decades since. But really, when you actually look at his record, it's just awful. Like, just this kind of stuff all over the place.
Mm-hmm. So the other thing we get into is this weird way that Star Trek treats ageism.
Yeah, and being old is, at one hand, it's like all the wisdom and things like that, which Picard is talking about, and the other hand, it's being old is a burden, something that will prevent you from doing all the things you want to, and you're going to have to automatically feel useless, and you can't just be yourself, I guess.
Yeah, well, so, again, we can contrast with some stuff in original series where one of the things that they dealt with in at least one animated episode, I forget how often, if it showed up much other places, is their mandatory retirement age thing.
Yes.
And, which was pretty young, for given how long people live in this show.
Yeah, it was like 60-something, right?
Yeah. Which shows an inherent devaluation of people when they get older, especially once you've been promoted to desk job admiral.
Yeah. It's like you sit at a desk and tell other people to fly ships places. If you were on the ship, you'd be sitting it down and telling people to fly the ship places. This is only slightly easier here, but apparently it's going to be too much for you all the same, I guess.
You can argue that most of these episodes are definitely trying to critique. They're definitely trying to critique ageism.
Mm-hmm.
They're going about it in such a weird way because, they are critiquing ageism because you are shown that the character who's obsessed with youth is wrong.
Yes.
The entire text of the show is this character thinks that he can't function the way that he needs to being old, so he dangerously de-ages himself in order to try to be at his best physical, mental state in order to do these negotiations.
It's like, well, you do know you can, if you are worried about the physical demands of this particular sort of situation, there's a whole crew of folks here that, are basically at your beck and call in order to help out here. So, any sort of physical demands that you don't think you're ready for aren't really a problem. And so, what else is there that you're actually concerned here? You seem, sound of mind other than, thinking it's a good idea to take, 2 full doses of this drug here. But other than that, you seem to be pretty sharp. You figure out what's actually going on with the, with Karnas there just by sort of interacting with him and sort of catching all his cues and things like that. So, you're not suffering from Alzheimer's or something like that. So what's the matter, guy? Come on.
See, this is the strange subtextual issue that you wind up in when a show tries to critique a social problem this way. Because it's essentially taking a social problem, ageism and the devaluing of older people, and turning it into an individual problem. Yes. This individual person doesn't like the fact that he is older, and so does some dangerous stuff to be obsessed with youth. And we do find being obsessed with youth to overall be a negative trait. The thing that gets ignored when you do change something from a social problem to an individualist problem, there's only 2 ways that can be a problem for that individual. Either this is an inherent belief that all people have, that being old makes you weak and useless, And that's just something that all people will eventually believe about themselves and have to take a force of will to unlearn. Or not even unlearn, just unbelieve. It's something you will eventually come to no matter what. And some people have the force of will to, like, stop believing that. Or it's still a social problem, and you, as someone who grew up in this society, have those beliefs. So when you reach the age at which those beliefs would apply to you, you believe them about yourselves. It's internalized ageism.
Yes. Maybe he was ageist like his entire life then.
Well, he would be. Even if he
Yeah.
wasn't, explicitly ageist, it often, some of these beliefs that you get taught societally, even if you don't believe that you are applying them to other people, once it comes to yourself, they sort of manifest themselves more strongly. It's the same sort of thing, just from my own personal, like, queer experience, is like internalized homophobia and biphobia. Like, it's the sort of thing that I don't believe about other people can come up when I'm thinking about myself.
This sort of internalized critique is, sort of, I guess, gets that thing that you are generally your hardest critic or your own worst enemy, and the things that you feel about others is just so amplified because you feel that you know yourself so much better than you know them. So obviously this critique is way more valid, and that's not actually the case.
Yeah, there's also the very understandable thing of needing to keep yourself more safe. Like, if you know that a society is hostile and devalues older people, you see older people and go, well, I am not going to devalue that person, and if they can do stuff that they need to live, that's great, and I support them. Mm-hmm. Then when you get to that age, you're like, well, now society is devaluing me in a way that I find dangerous, and I need to do something about that for myself.
Yeah. Sometimes that thing might not be a wise decision, so, don't take age reduction drugs, guys.
Yeah, even if you have them.
I guess this is maybe one of the things that I have some potential issues with in terms of the end of death sort of arguments that it's like, well, stop aging, and well, when are we going to stop aging in terms of how old will you be? And that's maybe something that we're going to have to sort of deal with as a society. If there is the, quote, ideal time for to stop aging, then anyone who is older, in a visual sort of way, or you get what I mean here, is clearly stop their aging at a later point in their life. They might be either accused of having not taken the procedure, or they're going to be sort of ostracized for being a late adopter or something like that. And, there's going to be a whole different type of ageism at that point. It's like, yes, we're all centuries old, but you look like you're 60 and I only look 40. It's going to be weird.
It could be weird.
Yeah.
I don't think we're really going to get there. Like, people keep having these things. We found a way to de-age certain things in cells. We found a way to get rid of this genetic copying error, etc., etc. It's very much more complicated.
Yes.
And it's one of those things that's going to be near impossible to get to, and we're certainly not going to have to worry about it in our lifetime.
Although if we do, that would be cool. To quote, Ivanova and Marcus, well, who wants to live forever? I do, but what the hell?
And we better have improved society a lot by then.
Yes.
Otherwise, you're going to have, I don't know, everyone's just going to die by suicide at some point.
Yeah, alternatively, we're going to get those things like that one movie where, how much money you have determines how much time you have left over. That's getting really depressing.
Well, of course, then you wind up with an interesting question that I don't think I've seen anyone really do in a sci-fi setting. If you have the capacity to not die, if you have the capacity to prevent yourself from dying with these drugs, is choosing to not take the drugs and die anyway considered suicidal behavior?
Well, hypothetically, society would also be, more okay with that as a sort of outcome. Because sometimes people will just kind of get done with living forever. So, you can't blame them. But
yeah, but why? Like, a society that developed this, a
Yeah.
society that spent all this time and energy developing it, trying to distribute it to as many people as possible for this to become a societal norm. This suggests a society that is fundamentally uncomfortable with the idea of death.
Yeah. So, yeah.
And I don't see why you would suddenly become more comfortable with the idea of death if very few people are in fact dying.
Yes. This actually does remind me of a short story I may have brought up before. It's called Outnumbering the Dead, and it features a protagonist for which these sorts of drugs don't work. That everyone else can live forever, but he is going to hit 90 or 100, and that's going to be it. And so he, goes through the procedures to, keep his youthful appearance, even though internally his body's falling apart. And you got, sort of a situations like, well, I kind of have to come to terms with my death, but so does everyone else around me, because this is really weird for them too.
Mm-hmm. Like, no, I'm not going to just die by accident.
I'm going to just not wake up one day. It's going to be awkward for everybody. I think that's how it went.
See, that's why anytime they introduce something like this into a sci-fi show, they always have to do this sort of, it is something that's known by this one particular isolationist species that will not share it with outsiders no matter what you do.
And it's dangerous if you do use it, and it doesn't work for even all of their people. So, it's a big risk, and you can't get it anyway, so don't even bother.
That seems like maybe they should look into this and the other thing and some of these other de-aging thingies before they try to completely destroy a planet for it, an insurrection. But
yeah. So there's options out there, guys. Come on. But maybe this procedure doesn't solve the one thing that that one admiral was concerned about, and
yeah.
Which is like, I don't know, maybe like he had an ingrown toenail or something like that.
I've been all over the galaxy and no one can fix my ingrown toenail.
Have you tried? Yes, I've tried that. Okay, I haven't even told you what it is. The word was anything. But yeah, this is an episode where you got a guy who's sort of internalized that fear. And so maybe an interesting question for the episode would have been, Anna's like kind of just generally upset that her husband's dying and has been taking some, ill thought of decisions here without consulting her. But I kind of would have liked to know a little bit more about her perspective on aging, other than he's going to be young now and I'm not. Yeah, because that's sort of.
Well, she did kind of say that she was looking forward to the being old and enjoying your life together thing.
Yeah.
Which is another one of these things that just, oh my God, straight people. Just this, there's this general idea that you're supposed to spend all of your time separate and apart while you're working and never enjoy any time together, and then eventually when you hit 60 or 70 be able to stop working and finally be together as a couple. And it's something that they say like a lot of people look forward to, and then of course you get obsessed with your job because it's all you've been doing your entire life, and then you can't relax and just enjoy your time together. And that's kind of where we're at with that as far as her story arc is going. Is he's obsessed with his job, this is a way that he's going to be able to continue being obsessed with his job.
So maybe could have had her have a thing where I was finally starting to get him to calm down and to think about other things, but then this thing came up, and now all that effort is kind of thrown out the window, and then suddenly he took this drug, and maybe some other things there, but I don't got a complete thought here really, but just sort of some things.
Generally,
to expand
it is
on.
in fact a problem of another couple that's just not communicating with each other.
Like, we're finally learning how to communicate, and then he stopped communicating and didn't tell me things. Crap. Or she did mention like we've always been honest with each other. Now I'm wondering, is that true? Maybe this is just the first time that he's been caught.
Yeah, he's de-aged several times.
Well, yeah, I mean more like he's been up to various shenanigans without telling her, and because he didn't feel that he owed her the truth, or that it would just cause problems or make her stressed, and I'm doing this for her good or some nonsense, which further slides him into villain territory there. But it's still sort of it would kind of really make sense given what we're presented here, but also limited airtime for the episode.
And I do think, just as a little final thing here, I'd be kind of lax. It's very similar to what we talked about with the ageism, but I'd be a little lapsed if I didn't talk about how this is also showing internalized ableism and just general ableism, because it's not just the fact that he's old. They are able to, for some reason, they also put in that he has a degenerative illness.
Yeah.
Which the only reason I can think that they would put that in is to explain why he looks so awful at 80.
Yeah.
Could have just aged him up.
Yeah. It's like, she's aging gracefully and is 130. He's 150, something like that. And can even have a storyline where they actually met later in life, when he was kind of edging towards retirement, fell in love, and, for a time everything was great because, they get along well, and he was kind of, looking forward to retirement. But then this damn thing happened, and suddenly he's back in the mode again.
Mm-hmm. But then you do wind up with another, like I said, there's ableism in this, because the reason that he's doesn't believe he can do his job is because he has a degenerative illness, and he says that he has to go out and find all these cures and things because he has a degenerative illness, which again suggests that people with long-term illnesses are also not treated completely equally in the society.
Oh.
But we don't know enough about this, because it's odd that, we have an 86-year-old who is at least in a semi-advanced stage of a degenerative illness, because he has to use a wheelchair. He's got some ill effects happening to him physically. And he's still a respected admiral and diplomat, to the point that he's still working in Starfleet. He's still a high-ranking officer, and he's still tasked for this specific expedition.
Indeed.
They didn't say, oh, no, this guy doesn't work here anymore, and we're not going to send an 85-year-old off to do ambassadorial work.
He might have some stuff going on, but, he's good to go as far as, we're concerned. So, yeah.
Which does then suggest that either people are still ageist and he's just able to have some clout as an admiral, or we have kind of fixed this problem at this point in the future, and he has this internal problem, but then we get really no idea where this came from for himself. Why, in a society that wouldn't mind, that does value the experience and existence of an older person and a disabled person, does he get this idea that both of those things are so bad that he has to do this incredibly risky thing to himself?
Yeah, I think there could have been some interesting sort of exploration there. Maybe in a short conversations like, when I was young, this is, kind of how people viewed being older. And, that's maybe not the case now, but, I sort of hint that he's, sort of grew up in a different society, and that the society of the Federation in the present has moved on and gotten better on these things. Picard's only a few decades younger than him, and he's like, old's being cool, you learn from your mistakes as a kid, and then you are able to be more badass. It's great.
Yeah, and you do have a bit of a through line, I guess I should say, because they do try to set up a bit of him being obsessed with and regretting the decisions that he made in his past, and seeing this as an opportunity to remake those same decisions because it's such a similar situation.
Yeah.
But that kind of gets thrown in right at the end, and then also it's odd with how it's shown that he's still deteriorating because he doesn't remember where the tunnels are, etc., etc. And they really don't make it clear whether that's a side effect from the medication or if it's just because he's old and doesn't remember things.
I kind of actually interpret it as, his, strong-headedness here was having him not focus on the new changes to the situation. That maybe things have changed in the decades since he was there, but he's just not interested in sort of internalizing them because he wants to sort of refight that previous battle.
Yeah, so I would say there's also that. There's a very large component of what this episode's trying to talk about of being obsessed with youth as a concept. But that is still also just we have these weird things. We have these weird things where, like, we have an incredibly ageist society, but then we criticize people for not being happy with that situation by saying you shouldn't be obsessed with your youth and you should just be happy to be older, etc. And we judge people for not wanting to have to put up with the shit we put them through.
So maybe it's time for the Federation to reevaluate its own society here. Maybe there's still things that could be improved upon.
Well, 90% of what we see in Star Trek is things that could be improved upon.
Yeah. I don't really got much more than that to sort of poke at this one. We've already talked about the old age makeup being kind of, but it is makeup to age actors up is a time-honored tradition in various forms of theater, film, TVs, and things like that. But now we have, through advanced technology, the means to de-age them digitally. And sometimes it looks awkward, sometimes it doesn't.
In horrifying ways.
It's like, just don't have them smile too much. Their teeth will fall out. And by fall out, I mean go outside.
I don't understand it completely, not knowing a ton about special effects makeup, but aging and de-aging makeups are some of the full-on most difficult that you can take on.
Because
they didn't do it well.
The same, and we want this person to look like the same person, but we need some way to put more things on their face without making them look puffy, and we kind of did here.
Yeah.
So
then the other stuff just gets into uncanny valley territory very quickly.
Yes. Which, some folks are okay with, some other people are creeped out by, but there's also examples where everyone's creeped out by it, so,
Yeah.
Yeah.
All right, I'm surprised that we were able to get this much out of this episode,
yes.
So I suppose that it's time for the Galaxy's favorite game show!
Woo! Hey everybody, welcome to the Galaxy's favorite game show. We got various contestants today who have been racking up all sorts of points, and we're ready to hand out some prizes. The first one we're going to hand out is the Endless War Prize, which goes to Karnas for his pursuit of a decades-long civil war. Though, I guess in his defense, he didn't just lay over and die, because, that would have maybe solved everything. Karnas, you suck, just in general. Anyway... I know he's not the only one responsible here, but what does he win today, Gepwin?
He wins laser tag. With this weird advanced weaponry and him giving it to both sides overall, you could just give them like super advanced laser tag and not have anyone die.
Well, that would have been awesome. Wait, what if that's what they actually did? The Civil War this entire time has been a big laser tag thing, and the Federation just didn't notice. Good work, Gepwin. You've solved, all the death and destruction there. Congratulations. Our second prize is the What Prime Directive Prize, which goes to Admiral Jameson, the other bad guy in this episode, for his awkward interpretation of the Prime Directive, where it's like, yeah, I'll not interfere by interfering all the way. What does he win, Gepwin?
He wins civilian oversight. Because I don't know what they're doing in the Federation by this point, but we found out something like this was happening under the Reagan administration, which is one of the most corrupt time periods in our government's history.
Yeah, so maybe this guy should have been, found out a lot sooner than this. So, that Federation Council is kind of powerless at this point in time, huh? Anyway, the final prize today is the Are We the Guest Stars prize, which goes to the crew of the Enterprise until Picard finally puts his foot down and steps up and is like, hey, I'm fed up with this situation. I'm going to be in this plot too. So what do they win, Gepwin?
The Enterprise crew wins the Federation's new Uber app, because that's a lot of what they do in some of these. It's like, we are here to ferry the guy from place to place and have some mildly intellectual discussions along the way.
Yes, the USS Taxi Enterprise for your enterprising taxiing needs. Oh, yeah, that's all I got for this week, Epwin. So feel free to take us away, and I guess I'm going to show off my gray hairs in the meantime. So look over here, and it's cool, guys. It's actually making me look stunning.
No, I started going gray in around 25 because everyone in my family does, but it comes in cool streaks.
Yeah.
All right, thank you all for joining us and listening to this thing that we call the Galaxy's favorite game show.
Woo! So that was an episode of Star Trek: Next Generation.
Yeah, I mean, there's more to it than the episode would make it seem, but somehow just the way that they do it is very bland.
Yeah.
So bland.
I guess this is a very beige episode.
Yeah, one of those.
Yes. It's like, the overall presentation, it's not really offensive, even though there's some kind of stuff going on, but it just kind of happens.
Well, next is one of the weirder episodes of the first season. It's one that everyone remembers because it's one of these Wesley-focused episodes.
Yep.
And the other one was, haha, they should have just let Wesley die. This one is they should have just left Wesley behind.
He would have been a good caretaker of their massive supercomputer.
Yeah. This is one of the most confusingly named episodes. We hit a few of these, but this is one of the more confusingly named episodes, called When the Bow Breaks.
Do you think this has something to do with trees?
Maybe. I couldn't find any particular reason it's called this.
Time
really.
will come, baby. Cradle and all.
Yeah, but I guess just because it's about children,
Yeah, maybe.
it's just strange. It's strange overall. It's one of these weird ones. It's one of these mythical space thing. But I know Babylon 5 did a lot more of the mythical space is giant and vast, and you have no idea what's going on out there stuff.
Mm-hmm.
Star Trek didn't lean into that as much, but every now and then it would pop up one of these, it's the mythical planet of whatever the hell, and oh, look, it just magically appeared before us. That's convenient. We were just talking about that.
Yeah, this is the right sector of space for it, so that's why I was talking about it. That's clearly why it appears just today.
Yeah.
With Babylon 5, it's there's all sorts of mysterious things beyond the rim, and no one really knows what's out there, and then you got the Vorlons over there, and they're got their kind of space, and they're being all mysterious over there, and don't go there either. There's a lot of mysterious stuff out there, so stick to our known space lanes, please.
So this is the episode where they steal children in a weird way. That's a lot of it, really.
Yeah. And they got some problems there that they're not really addressing, but stealing children will totally solve it for reals, these guys. Also, one of the actors in this next episode was in the Last Starfighter.
Yeah, there's a lot of... there's just a ton of guest stars in this. So there is that. There's so many guest stars.
So I just figured I'd bring it up now. When the Bow Breaks, we learn about alien music and... when it's okay to, steal children as long as you pay for it. And and also Wesley tries to pull a Dr. Martin Luther King here, but...
yeah, it doesn't work well.
Yeah, it's you could do many other sort of ways to resist your situation here that is more than just being quiet around the people that kidnapped you, because they might actually like that.
Yeah. We probably might, and we also will probably talk about this a bit more in the next thing, but it's also one of those episodes where they needed a lot of child actors.
Yes.
So, the background characters are mostly cast and crew and, Will Wheaton's siblings.
Yeah. It's we just need a lot of people here. We'll give you lunch and maybe $10. Just kind of stand in the background here.
So, next time we talk about child kidnapping.
Hooray!
Will it tie into Stranger Danger? Who knows?
When the Bow Breaks.
Next time
Yes.
Watches of Tomorrow.
Next time on Watchers of Tomorrow, Planet of Kidnappers. You have been listening to Watchers of Tomorrow, a podcast on science fiction media. Find and follow Watchers of Tomorrow on Podbean, YouTube, Spotify, iTunes, Google Play, Stitcher, Pocket Cast, Spreader, Digital Podcast, and perhaps many more to come. If you enjoy our podcast, make sure to subscribe for more. And where possible, make sure to rate your experience or leave us a review. You may find Gepwin on youtube.com/Gepwin and Twitter @Gepwin. You may find me, Dr. Isix, on youtube.com/Dr. Isix and Twitter @IsixLP. Music is Waveform and Mori's Principle, both by DRKRN. You can also check out the Watchers of Tomorrow Discord channel. Make sure to share the experience with your friends, family, enemies, and alien overlords. If you feel you are suffering from transporter syndrome, please be aware that the next time you step off the transporter, that you, that is now, no longer exists.